Okay, it looks like we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sitrep podcast. We're gonna let this
Hello,
ad
everybody.
play. We're gonna let this ad play. I'm going to check out a couple of our platforms to make sure that we're up and live, and yeah, then we'll get started. I'm sorry, Piotr, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm joined today by Piotr over in Poland, and we're gonna take another look at our concluding look, I should say, at Dien Bien Phu. So,
Hello,
Mr.
comrade.
Piotr, how are you doing today? How are things going over there on your end of the world?
Oh, it's not bad. Everything's fine. We finally got some sun, so we can enjoy a nice weather after a few days of rain.
Alrighty. Let me try to get us up here on... I see that we're live on Twitch. I'm just going to take a quick check on YouTube. Also,
We're live on YouTube. I got an email.
Okay, cool. Also, Jen, if you can give us a sound test on myself, Piotr, and this background sound effects, please. We'll wait to hear from Jen and see how our sound is. Yep, we are live on YouTube. Oop. Yes, I know we're live, Jen. How was our sound? That's what I'm asking. I think there's a delay here. I think the latency is a little bit worse than usual. Which is not fun, but that's okay. Okay, cool. Sound is good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started then. We're live on all of our platforms. We have verified that our sound is good. We're going to go ahead and get started here today. So welcome, everybody, once again to a bit of a surprise stream here on the Sitrep podcast channel. We're going to take our last look today at Dien Bien Phu using Barry Doyle's Valor Victory system. One more time, I am joined by my friend Piotr, and we're going to take at how the Dien Bien Phu campaign finally wraps up here in Valor Victory. So, Piotr did most of the research and actually picked the battle that we were going to recreate here, or I should say picked the particular engagement within the Battle of Dien Bien Phu that we were going to recreate here. Piotr, could you tell us a little bit about this particular engagement at Claudine 5 and like why you picked it for today's game?
Yeah, so for people that were following the series, we were doing some battles from the initial recon patrols of the French forces around Dien Bien Phu through the assault on Beatrice and then one of the key positions at Liantou. And we decided with risking it that we should do the one of the last battles of the siege. So I did some research, and actually there are a lot of information about Claudine 5, which was just 300 meters away from the French command post at at Dien Bien Phu. And actually it's not one of the big engagements of the whole battle. But it was the last night of the siege, and this battle actually shows how desperate was the situation of the French forces during the last days of the siege. Because at that night, from around noon, the Viet Minh forces used Katyusha rockets in order to shell the positions, and from different accounts that we can find either online or in many source books that were written about the battle. We can say that actually Claudine 5 was, after the shelling during the night hours, was a one big crater that was still being held for the next 3 hours after 2 battalions of Viet Minh division assaulted it, and it was being held either by an understrength company and a platoon from survivors from another position, or by some mixed unit of Foreign Legion sappers that came from the base camp. And today we'll try to recreate the one of the last stands at Dien Bien Phu before the base fell to the Viet Minh forces on May 7th. And I believe that's it. I don't know
Cool.
if I can elaborate more on that.
All right, so yeah, just some really quick super background for people who may not have seen our earlier videos. This is pretty much the last battle of what is usually called the First Indochina War. So this war starts almost immediately after World War II ends. It happens when the French come back into their colonies in Southeast Asia. At the time, that included North and South Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, and said, we want our colonies back. After the Japanese were sort of kicked out of Southeast Asia at the end of World War II, and communist leaders, or I should say communist forces, led by Ho Chi Minh, said, no, we just got rid of the Japanese. We're going to set up our own country now, and the typical post-World War II colonial war started almost immediately. So that war simmered on for about 5 years, for about 9 years. It finally came to a head here at Dien Bien Phu. The French parachuted in a big force. They're going to set up this big base camp and pretty much, disrupt the communist operations here in this part of what would become North Vietnam. Didn't work. They got surrounded by huge Viet Minh forces, and that began like a 3 or 4 month siege by these at least three divisions: 308th, 312th, and 316th, with the 351st Heavy Assault or Artillery Division, whatever you want to call it, backing them up. And yeah, the French were in big trouble almost from the start. So once the siege set in, they started knocking off these positions one by one. Beatrice was the first one to go down. I think that was the night of 13 to 14 March 1954. And then they would start to chew more and more of these other positions. And by the first week of May 1954, it was time for the end game. And these are the last assaults. This is an American map from Strategy and Tactics magazine over here. This is an actual Vietnamese map that shows their names for all these strong points. These green rectangles are showing where we are, the actual scaled area of today's game table. So, a Valor Victory hex is between 15 and 20 meters. We're doing 15 meters. I like my tables as small as possible. So based on that, these are the number of hexes on the table. Obviously, these are the actual battlefields. So these positions are all, they all have women's names, French women's names as call signs. There's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The legend is that they're after the mistresses of the commander. I doubt that's true, because they just also happen to be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Anne-Marie, Beatrice, Claudine, Dominique, Eliane. Are we detecting a pattern here? F is, where's F? Oh, Francois. G is Gabrielle. H is Huguette, and then down here we have Isabel, and then even later on there's a J, there's Juno, and so on and so forth. So each one of these positions actually has a number of strong points within it. So Claudine had at least 4 or 5, well, at least had 5, and today we're going to be doing the assault on Claudine 5. So here's the general outline of where the Claudine positions were. Again, Claudine was one of the last positions to go down on that last terrible night at Dien Bien Phu. We have some, so here's, Claudine 2, Claudine 3, Claudine 4, Claudine 5. This is, the area that's, again, under review today. We're looking at 2 battalions of 102nd Regiment, 308th Viet Minh Division, that is overrunning a Foreign Legion position held by, like Piotr was saying, at most. There's a couple ways to interpret the record, but at most, we're being as generous as we can. At most, an understrength French Foreign Legion company. And it's doubtful if they even had that much. But that's the version we're going with. We just have a bunch more information here about how these positions were actually laid out. We're just trying to make our games as close to history as is. I don't want to say as possible, but we're as close as reasonably possible. Again, this is just a game at the end of the day, so we're not trying to, conduct any kind of post-mortem tactical thought experiments here. It's just a game. But we want the game to at least resemble how these battles were. So we do our research. Again, in this case, Piotr did most of the research. Then I just took his data, built the game, and today we're going to go ahead and get started on playing it. So the map is easy enough. One thing that I found interesting is that this is the first position that we've played in our Dien Bien Phu series that doesn't have any elevated high ground. Is that pretty much what you found on your maps, Piotr, or?
Yeah, it's supposed to be a hill, I don't know, one of the names, but basically it was a flat terrain surrounded by this small stream and rice paddy fields.
Yeah, I forgot to name the stream. The stream actually has a name. I just don't have. Oh, the Hong Fong stream. So
yeah.
that's missing from the map, but the stream is there. I just didn't put the label on there. But yeah, we've had rice paddies in our Vietnam game before. So again, as I'm sure everyone who's watching the stream knows, French Indochina War, or the first Indochina War, ends in 1954. The French leave. Vietnam becomes an independent country, sort of. It splits in two, sort of. There's a lot of conflict. It continues to get worse and worse. With the French knocked out of the box, the Americans start to get involved. Surprise, surprise. Before you know it, you have the Second Indochina War. People can argue about when it started, but the Second Indochina War, more commonly known as the Vietnam War. So this is not the Vietnam War. It takes place in Vietnam, or what would become Vietnam, and it's got some of the same leaders, but this is the Vietnam War prequel. Different weapons, different tactics, different armies, a different feel, really. But yes, just in case people get confused, the first Indochina War and the Vietnam War are two separate conflicts. They just take place really close to each other and in the same general area. The point being is that, yes, we've had rice paddies in our Vietnam Valor Victory games before. We have rules for them. We haven't used them so far in Dien Bien Phu, but we're certainly going to use them today. The usual trenches, buildings, a little road that leads out the sally port back to the bunker 300 meters away that Piotr was talking about. And then that leaves us with just, so you'll notice that there are no bunkers on this map. We do have some reports from Piotr's research that says that those BM-13 Katyusha, those are those old World War II Soviet rocket trucks, Stalin's organ pipes, that these the Viet Minh gunners got their hands on in 351st Heavy Division, have been shelling the ever-living hell out of this place hence all the craters, for at least several hours. And one of the things that this barrage did was it wrecked all the fortifications. So the French have plenty of trenches, and they have some buildings, but the bunker counters have been replaced by rubble markers. So rubble does have different rules. They're still pretty good to use as defensive positions. Any German paratrooper that was at Monte Cassino can tell you that. But it's not as good as an actual bunker, at least here in Valor and Victory game terms. So then we created our forces. Again, we're being as generous as we can with the French. So the French had, according to the most generous source we can find, for the second assault on Claudine 5, an understrength company from 1st Battalion, 2nd Foreign Legion Regiment. So that's these guys. This is the actual historical commander who was there, Captain Schmitz. Oops, except I can't get him out from behind the rest of his men. Come on, Schmitz, don't be bashful. Oh my god. Schmitz is being a pain in the ass already. Alright, Schmitz, you're about to make me irate here. I'm gonna call in my first Viet Minh artillery barrage on you. Oh my god. Oh my god. Schmitz, you're really pushing it, man. You're about ready to get Schmitz right out of this game. Alright, there he is, finally. It's the same -2 commander as we always have. Whenever we can, I try to slap on some historical names to give it just a little bit of extra accuracy. Like I said, he's only got two platoons in his company. So yeah, there's platoon 1, here's platoon 2, and then one more understrength platoon that joined this position, survivors of 13th Demi Brigade. that joined the position from the main command bunker, I think, or from another position that was being overrun. So he's got 3 badly shot up platoons in a company-sized force, an understrength company-sized force, a few support weapons, and like a little bit of off-board mortar support. I cut the mortar support in half from our usual because again all these positions are being overrun at once. I'm sure those mortars are receiving frantic fire support calls from Dominique, from Huguet, from the other places in Claudine, from all the other places that are being overrun. So the normal 4 light barrages have been knocked down to 2. He's only got 1 barrage of mortars because he's only got 1 company instead of 2, like he normally has 2 full companies. So it's a smaller French force than we've seen before. Obviously no tanks like we saw at Elian 2, and yeah, things are gonna things are already looking bad for the Foreign Legion. We do have confirmed that 18th Infantry Battalion and 79th Infantry Battalion hit this base with everything they had. However, when I created this scenario last night, and I created 18th and 79th Infantry Battalions at full order of battle, I wound up with, surprise, surprise, each battalion has 3 platoons. Each platoon has 3 squads in it. You wind up with 54 total squads. 9 out of 6 companies, and it was a mess. I was like, there's no way. I mean, I know the Viet Minh are supposed to overrun the French position, but it won't even be a fun game, much less a fun stream, if I hit Piotr with the full 2 battalions that were probably there. So what we did was, or what I did as a designer was, read back through Piotr's notes and saw where this was the second assault that took place on Claudine 5 that night. So that first assault was either repelled or ejected, depending on whose version of the history you read. Either way, these guys, these Viet Minh forces didn't succeed in their first assault on Claudine 5 that night, and therefore I took a third of the force out to account for casualties, disorganization, and everything else. Again, this is the second offensive, so that huge pre-staged Viet Minh artillery bombardment that we've been seeing for a lot of our games has also been reduced, because again, those big heavy Katyushas have already shot their wads, so to speak. They're not going to be finished reloading all those Katyusha trucks. It's the middle of the night. They're going to have fired off most of their ammunition, most of their units of fire, and so on. That initial barrage has gone from 8 down to 4. And then I have the 3 normal barrages after that. Special rules are pretty much the same as we've been using. The Viet Minh preparatory barrage we've talked about 100 times before. Viet Minh sappers. The trench rules. We are in deep night, so we're using full night fighting rules. And that's explained in this box over here. It's like between midnight and 2 in the morning, I think you said, Piotr? So when this position finally fell?
Yeah, 11 p.m. till 2 a.m.
Cool.
So
So,
3 hours.
yeah, needless to say, pitch darkness. Piotr does have flares in his order of battle that he can put up with either his onboard mortar or his offboard strikes, however he wants to deliver them. And that's about it. Oh, we have the new rice paddy rules. So the rice paddy rules is -1 off the unit's total movement, not double movement like trees or uphill or anything else like that. It slows you down, but doesn't slow you down that much, and it provides a +1 cover, because you can get down into the rice paddy. The rice paddies are kind of like depressions in the ground that you can use as partial cover. And it slows you down a little bit because you are running through like ankle deep or knee deep water. Barbed wire, normal rules, crater, normal rules, everything else is pretty much the same. We won't go through it all because we've been all through this 100 times in previous streams and previous games. So unless anyone else has any further questions, I was going to go ahead and kick this thing off. So the Viet Minh are totally going to, stomp all over this game, because I mean, obviously I outnumber him by a huge amount. He's got better troops. He's got defensive positions. Those are his advantages. My advantages obviously are numbers and darkness and artillery. Now that darkness is going to kind of fly away as an advantage pretty quickly once I get close to him. Once you're adjacent, night rules no longer apply. If somebody's standing 3 feet from you, you know how to stab him in the stomach with a bayonet. It's fine. You don't have to make a spotting check. He's right there. So once I get adjacent to him, that target, that darkness advantage is going to kind of evaporate for me. But again, I have huge number advantage and artillery advantage. The other advantage he's got is the objective hexes. I have to take all 5, and no more excuses. 1, 2, 3 is the building, 4 is where the other bunker was, and 5 is the sally port, because we're trying to take the egress route that leads back to the command bunker. So those are the 5 objective hexes I have to take by the end of turn 6. So that was the setup. I set up the forces last night before I sent the file over to Piotr. Piotr, are you happy with this setup, or do you want to make any last minute changes? These are technically your troops.
No, I'm really happy with how they are set up right now, so we can start the game.
Cool. So I've gone ahead and started the game.
Alright.
So, see, that's what happens when you ask me to do something. No, just kidding. I've got my 4 pre-game, or whatever, my turn 0 preparatory bombardment counters mixed. I've got my 4 pre-game artillery markers gone ahead and sighted. I'm going to go ahead and roll now to see if they hit, and then whether or not they hit or not, we'll go ahead and resolve that. There's no fire phase for the Viet Minh on turn 1 because I'm not on the table yet technically. I go directly to movement phase. My first movement phase is already there on the table. And then we'll start off with your offensive and defensive fire, assuming any of you survive my artillery wrath. So,
Can be painful.
the artillery is going to kill almost anything it hits. The problem is it's going to be terribly inaccurate because it's dark, and these are pre-sighted artillery barrages. These are not spotted by officers or anything like that. So, all right, all that preamble out of the way. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. So I'll go ahead and start with this guy over here. So normally in Valor Victory, it's a 1, 2, 3, or a 4. It lands where it's supposed to. A 5, it scatters by 1 hex. A 6, it scatters on 2 hexes. These are quote-unquote blind artillery missions that are called in with nothing more than a map and a grid reference and a little bit of geometry. So what we're going to be looking at here is 1, 2, or a 3, it hits where it's supposed to. 4, 5, it drifts by 1 hex. 4, it drifts by 1 hex. 5, it drifts by 2 hexes, and 6, it just dissipates into ineffectual, sporadic, dispersed fire that doesn't do anything in game terms. Makes some noise, pretty much. Okay, so here's my Sitrep dice, my Sitrep podcast dice box. We're starting off here in Golf 8. The first roll of the game is a 2. That artillery mission lands where it's supposed to. Awesome. We go up tier to Hotel 6. We're going to resolve the strike of that artillery. A 3. That one lands where it's supposed to. Very good. Next, India 8. 5. That one drifts by 2 hexes. Okay, North is 1. And 2. It drifts 2 hexes to, and it lands on these guys instead. Awesome. Even when I miss, I hit. Wait a minute. Yeah, north is 1, so 2 is to the northeast. Okay, cool. Making sure I did that right. Everybody in the chat, and Piotr especially, watch me for rules violations. I promise I don't cheat on purpose. But I make mistakes all the time, and call me out if I do anything wrong. Okay, last but not least, Motel 8. Motel 8 also drifts by 2 hexes. Again, north is 1. And that one also drifts 2 hexes to the northeast, and that one is going to land on some empty trenches. So that one does nothing. The other 3, however, definitely do something. To make the game go a little faster, I usually have a smaller copy of my combat results table over here. Or technically speaking, my anti-personnel firepower table. Okay, so here's the first one. Heavy barrage is on the orange row. Rubble and trenches are both +2 defensive bonuses to you. because you get partial cover from trenches and rubble. So I'm going to go ahead and roll 2d6 and add 2 to the result. And that's not a bad roll. That is going to be 6 plus, again, 2 for the defensive bonus, makes a total of 8. 8 on this roll is 4 casualty points. I think you can technically save something there.
Oh yeah, that's true. So we have to kill the half squad and pin the officer.
Kill the half squad and pin the officer. Boom. Boom. And again, we're not really tracking these kind of victory points in this game because these men have all pretty much already written their last letters home, so to speak. But just for consistency, there is a casualty marker for the destroyed half squad. Okay, that's for that one. We go here to this one in Hotel 6. Again, 2d6, add 2 to the result for trenches. That one is another 6, same result, basically. 4 casualty points. Because I wind up with an 8 now, and 8 is, 4 casualty points in the orange row.
It's a full squad over there or a half squad, you think?
I think I put half squads in all the machine gun positions.
Oh, great. So we have to do the same.
Alright, last but not least, because that other one missed. This one over here, that drifted and landed on part of your reserves. So you probably saw this where I had all your gun crews as half squads, and so half squads kind of filling up the trench here. And especially on the south side where there's going to be more Viet Minh troops. And then there's like this little platoon of reserves here on the back, 3 full squads in the back.
Yep.
Alright, cool. So this guy lands here. Again, 2d6, add 2 for trenches. God damn, my dice are doing pretty well today. That is 5, becomes a 7. That is 6 casualty. No, that is 5 casualty points.
But still, I have to eliminate 1 full squad because I cannot take 5 in any other way. Because a half squad is worth 3. So.
Right. So do you want to knock off 1 full squad, or do you want to knock half a squad off of each of those squads?
5 casualty points, yes?
Yep. I mean, either way, it shakes out the same, and you have a command phase between now and when those guys will actually get into combat. But, yeah, sometimes it's better to have 2 half squads rather than 1 full squad, especially when you're on defense.
But if I make 1 full squad, a half squad, it will be 3 casualty points, yes?
Correct.
And then I can pin two of these guys. So only 1 full squad will have to go down to a.
Oh, that's actually correct. Yeah. So what he's going to do here, guys? He's going to knock off a full squad. He's going to replace it with a half squad. So again, notice that takes his cash. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Notice that takes his casualty rating. Come on, Excel. That takes his casualty. Let me find the right hex. That takes his casualty rating from 6 down to 3. That's 3 casualty points paid for. He can then pin the unit. You can't pin a unit before you apply casualties to it, but you can do it afterwards. So that's legal. That takes care of 4 casualty points. And here's his 5th casualty point. He pins the half squad. And by pinning units, he's able to save some of his guys. So if you're going to be ballsy and stand up in the trench and say, I will not be pinned, I have to shoot, and I have to shoot immediately, like right now, he takes more casualties. So the choice he made there is now that these 9 casualty points are not going to get opportunity fire against all these guys coming over the wire. But if he had done that, he would have had to kill another half squad. So if your guys are standing there in the trench, bellied up against the front of the trench, shooting, and when they try and take cover, the sergeant yells at them, God damn it, get your cowardly asses back up on that line and keep shooting. It's your option as the commander to do that in Valor Victory. You're going to take more casualties. But if you allow your men to take cover, you're going to reduce the amount of firepower that they can put out, but you're going to save lives. And there's a time for both those choices. But for now, that was the choice that was made. There's a good side and a bad side to it. And that wraps us up for Viet Minh pre-artillery, because this last one missed. So, let me decorate my board here just a second, because I love doing this.
Everybody likes that.
It's a visual medium, man. It's a hobby like any other. You gotta do whatever you can to make your board look
It's
cool.
like doing this last Panzer Leader game that you were playing on Sunday.
Oh my
I don't
god.
want any wrecks, I want poofs.
Yeah. That's oh wait, that's the wrong place. Hold on. I'll fix that in just a second. Come on, Excel. Not today. Alright. Yeah, poofs are these little black cotton pieces I have with a little bit of blue stuff, like blue tack or green stuff, whatever you call it, and cardboard. I basically made my own little explosion markers for 15 millimeter gaming, and we put them on burning tanks when we play physical 15 millimeter games. All right, cool. So, and this is just really the virtual equivalent of that. All right, so that's the artillery landed. That's it for my artillery. I had no direct fire. I did my movement. So now that my movement is done, it's time for your opportunity fire. I await your displeasure.
Okay, so maybe we'll start with Hotel A, Hotel 8. We'll try to shoot these guys in India 9.
Hotel 8 is here. You will
Yep.
shoot troops in India 9, okay? Are you waiting until they get right up on you?
Yeah,
Okay.
straight in the face.
So now I'm in the open. Darkness does not apply. Um, you get opportunity fire, a point blank bonus. Last question for you is: are you throwing in any grenades? You can throw in one grenade if you want.
Yes,
All right.
I will throw in one grenade.
You've got 6. There goes 1. Again, a slightly reduced grenade load. Cool. So what that means, guys, is see that red -1? He gets to subtract 1 from his die roll. An additional -1, because holy crap. He has a tiny attack. He's only got 3 firepower points, so he's on the very first red row. But he has to subtract 2 for being for firing point blank, opportunity fire. You get a -2 for that, and -1 for his grenade. So he rolls 2 dice and he subtracts 3 from the result.
Okay, and we have a 7.
7 becomes a 4. That is 3 casualty points. Oh no. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and knock a full squad down to a half squad. Do I have any half squads on the table? Or do I have to go back to the construction sheets? Questions,
You don't
questions,
need them in this
questions.
scenario.
Right. Alright, so that was 2 casualty points. I knocked my guy down from a 4 to a 2. That's the casualty rating there on the end of the table. Piotr already knows all this. I'm just talking about this for the chat. That's 2 casualty points, and then I'm going to pin that half squad, and that's going to account for my 3rd casualty point required. Okay, so that's him done, and that's 1 grenade used up. Okay, what else?
Now, the guys from India 8 will try to hit you in Juliet 8, and another opportunity fire from Juliet 7 will also hit the same stack. So I
Okay,
don't know if you want to,
so both of those, both of those get the -2 bonus for point blank opportunity fire. India 8 can throw 2 grenades if he wants, doesn't have to. J7 can throw 1 grenade if he wants, doesn't have to.
1 grenade from India 8.
Okay, so this attack from Indy 8 is going to be even worse for me. So, number 1, it's bigger because they have a light machine gun in there, an old American World War II 30 cal. It's a light support weapon, so the half squad crew can also use his own weapons, and there's an officer in the hex. So instead of 3, it's going to be a total of 7. 3 plus 3 plus 1. There's a -1 officer, which means he gets to subtract 1 for being an officer. That's good quality. That's sort of leading this fire mission. Plus 2 for point blank opportunity fire, plus 1 for the grenade. He gets to roll 2 dice. We always roll 2 dice, but he gets to roll on this white row, not the red row, and he's subtracting 4 from his die roll. So I'm not looking forward to this. Go ahead and make your roll, Mr. Piotr.
It's a 6.
A A 6 minus 4 becomes a 2. That is a total of 6 casualty points. That is one squad blown off the map. I'm going to go ahead and take another half squad. Actually, I'm going to... Okay, so one squad is killed straight off. Another squad is reduced to a half squad. And there we go. That's my 6 casualty points. Okay, and now you have the guy in Juliet 7.
Okay. So it's a 5.
5 minus 2. None of the other bonuses apply. No grenade, no officer. But it's still a 5. Minus 2 becomes a 3. A 3 on the red row is 4 more casualty points. Oh no, you killed my sappers. Why? He never did anything. He was just gonna jump in your trench and blow himself up. Why? That was
For
nice.
money.
For money. And for that shut up, bitches. Alrighty. That was some good opportunity fire. You pretty much just shot up a Viet Minh platoon. There's like 24 men dead or dying there in Juliet 8. Dead, dying, or wounded and crawling back through that rice paddy. Yeah, this game's gonna get bloody fast. Alright, cool. More opportunity fire, I'm assuming.
Yeah, and I believe the only thing that can see you are the guys in Motel 8.
Hotel 8.
Sorry, Mike 8.
Okay, gotcha. Yep, they can see. Go ahead, and they got all kinds of choices. They have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to targets. Who do we shoot, sir? Just shoot everything! Somebody shoot something!
The -1 guy, so straight down because he's,
okay.
The best one over there.
He's got a sapper in his stack and he's a -1. That is probably the biggest threat.
Yeah, and we will throw in a grenade.
Alright, cool. So you're at the 5, you're on the white row, and you're subtracting 3 from the die roll. 2 for point blank, for grenade.
It's an 8.
An 8 becomes a 5, is 3 casualty points. Full squad to a half squad, pin the half squad. Gives me my 3.
And I don't believe I see anything else, so that's it for my opportunity fire.
Now, for opportunity fire, we go immediately to defensive fire. Defensive fire is different from opportunity fire. Obviously, everyone who took opportunity fire cannot take defensive fire, but people who can see can call in the mortar mission.
Yep, and we will call in a flare.
Okay.
No, that's a good question. But I think we will throw it down at my guys in Golf 8. Because next turn you will be right there. Okay.
That's a bad sign for those guys in that ruined bunker. Command has already written off our position. They're calling in a flare so they can call in artillery on us next turn because they know that we're already dead.
That's a light at the end of the tunnel, come on.
It's literally walk into the light, dude. Oh, that's messed up. Okay, so, come on, Mixo. Alright, cool. So there's a flare there. So a flare, guys, is almost like an inverse, like, the table is in complete darkness. So, normally in a war game, it's daylight, you can see everything, unless it's obscured by a smoke shell that your opponent has called in. Here, it's the complete inverse of all of that. The whole table is in darkness, and you can't see anything until you call in a flare. So a flare is almost like a reverse smoke shell in other war games. So the flare comes in, it illuminates, it negates all the night rules in the hex that it's in, and all surrounding hexes, all adjacent hexes. So right now, all of these hexes, these 7 hexes here, are immune, or I should say, the night rules, night vision and night fire rules are negated in those 7 hexes. No big deal now, but he's anticipating me storming that position, which spoilers, it's probably going to happen. Later on in the game. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for your defensive fire then. Well, actually, I'm not in the hex yet, and again, we're not on a hill, so I probably shouldn't say this, but this guy has line of sight, this guy has line of sight. And technically speaking, this guy has line of sight.
Yeah, but who can see because of the night rules? There were no.
Oh, because I haven't fired yet. Thank you.
Yeah, you haven't fired.
I haven't technically fired yet.
Probably I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But you didn't fire yet, so I cannot shoot you.
We're both. I'll fix that in just a second here. Look at the bright side. You'll get to shoot at it in your direct fire phase, which is coming up very shortly. All right, so to wrap up the Viet Minh turn, we're going to go ahead and do our advance and assault phase. Once again, Orisking has gotten the name of the phase right on the first try. It doesn't happen often, folks. I usually screw that up. The advance and assault phase. I'm going to do some advance and assault. Surprise, surprise. So first, I'm going in here with this guy. This guy is going to launch the first assault of the game. Where are my assault markers? Oh, here we go. Just so I declare all my assaults here. Come on. Alright, cool. So my assault there, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Actually, let me start by, so that's 1, 6, 11, 13, and 15. 15 against 5 gives me a nice even 3 to 1. Did I get that math right? Yes, I did. 15 versus 5 is a nice 3 to 1. -2 or -0 officer. That's an objective hex, and I want it. I'm going to throw in 2 grenades. Are you throwing in there's 1 infantry unit in that hex. 1 guy can throw in a grenade if he wants.
No, nothing.
Okay, yeah, because there is a sapper in there. Alright, so the way sappers work, guys, again, these are risking these crazy house rules. The way sappers work are they're basically running satchel charges. So like we see in the end of the movie Platoon, this guy just ran into that trench wearing a dynamite vest, set it off, blew himself up. He automatically is destroyed. He does not count toward the casualty cost assessment that we're about to do, whether or not I take this hex or not, but he does get to throw in his 2 points, and he does subtract 2 from my die roll. He's basically a really big grenade. I threw in 2 regular grenades, so that's -1, -1, -2 for my sapper as a total of -4. I have no bonuses for my leader, so I'm at 3 to 1 at -4. I'm pretty sure this is automatic. 3 to 1 at -4. I have to roll a 13 or less on 2d6. Surprise, surprise, I succeed. That is a successful assault. However, it costs me 1 casualty point per infantry unit that was in the hex, plus the terrain bonuses of the target hex. That's a rubble hex, so that's 2, plus 1 infantry unit is 3. Cost me 3 casualty points. These 2 casualty points do not count towards that. So I have to take another 3, is the long and short of that. I'm going to knock another full squad down to a half squad. Give me a half squad, somebody. And then I'm going to pin down that half squad to account for my 3rd required casualty point. And then, of course, that's the 1 sapper unit used up. This guy's dead. This guy's pinned down. These 2 grenades are used up. There's a lot going on here. And I technically own that hex. And that's a victory hex, and I own an unsecured French Foreign Legion casualty. Although again, we're not really tracking that for victory purposes. This is an all or nothing kind of a game. Do or die assault for the, well, for both sides, really. No, this game is not even remotely fair, everybody. It's not really supposed to be.
Yeah, Jim is going to win, but I only thing I can do is slow him down and do as much casualties as I can.
Yeah, it's whether or not I win on time is what's going to be the killer. I have to take all 5 objectives, and that's going to be harder than it sounds. I know I always say that, but trust me, when you're on the attack in these games, Panzer Leader, Valor Victory, you find yourself running out of time so fast, you're like, what the hell happened to all my time? Oh, I got destroyed. Okay, never mind. Alright, meanwhile, I remember now, I got blown up. Oh, Lord.
It's a revenge for Beatrice.
Oh, God. Yeah, there's a little bit of that, too. I've gotten my ass kicked 3 times in Dien Bien Phu now. And now it's time for some Uncle Ho payback. Alright, this guy cannot participate in the attack because he's pinned. So that leaves us with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, 6, and 9. Okay, so this is going to be a lot tougher, this assault. 9 versus 7. No, 10 versus 7. Same 1-to-1 roll. You always round off in favor of the defender. So 1 plus 5 plus 2 plus 2 is 10 versus your 7. 1 plus 3 plus 3. I should say that I'm doing this. I guess before I start adding up numbers, I should officially declare my assault. Again, that pinned unit cannot help. So it's going to be 10 versus 7. It was 1-to-1. I have a sapper in there. 1-to-1 sucks. And you have a -1 officer there. That adds 1 to my die roll. This is when I should have saved my grenades. I have 3 infantry units in there. That would also kill an officer. I'm going to use up my grenades way too early, man. Gee whiz. Alright, yeah, I'm throwing in 2 grenades. You're able
I will
to throw
in 1.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this battle got desperate quick. He's almost out of grenades. I'm almost out of grenades. It's just, again, turn 1. We're already in desperate knife, shovel, grenade, we're hitting each other with bedpans at this point. It's already desperate. Okay, so it's 1-to-1. Let me track this on the dice. There's a lot of modifiers here. Okay, 1-to-1 are the odds. My 10 versus your 7. Fine. I have to add 1 for your to my roll. Again, high rolls are terrible, so you want to roll low in this game. I have to add 1 to my die roll for your for Saido's combat capability, his -1 bonus. I have to add 1 for your grenade. I get to subtract 2 for my grenades, and I get to subtract 2 for the sapper that's in there. Please tell me there's a sapper in there. Yes, there is a sapper in there. Alright, cool. So these cancel each other out. I get to subtract 2 from my die roll. At 1-to-1. This isn't great. This isn't great. He might win this one, guys. So 1-to-1, I have to roll a 6 or less on 2d6. The odds are against me. 6 or less is less than 50-50 on 2d6. However, I get to subtract 2 from my roll, so what I'm really looking for is an 8 or less. The odds are in my favor, but barely. It's like a 55-60% chance I make this roll. 8 or less on 2d6. Drum roll, please. Somebody say a prayer for me. Uncle Ho, do it! High 5, I made it. Oh god, that was close. A repelled assault is bloody as hell. Alright, so grenade used up, grenade used up, grenade used up. Sappers used up. Go away, grenades. I guess I was running a little slow here today. Alright, and then there are 2 enemy infantry units in that hex, and a +2 for trenches. I have to sustain 4 casualty points. Well, that's pretty much everybody in that assault died, except the officer. And he's probably about to get counter-assaulted and taken off the table. But he is in there, he has a little machine gun, and his guys are back there pinned down behind him. And these guys are destroyed, and that is another, actually 2 unsecured casualties. I don't even know why I'm tracking this. I keep saying we're not going to go by this by casualty points, but just in case, at the end of the game we say, hey, what were the casualties? That way I have Okay. No more assaults. So now I'm just going to do advance and assault phase. That would be illegal. I can't do that. Alright, he's going to advance up one. So advance and assault phase, guys. What you can do is you can either assault hexes that you're already adjacent to, or you can belly crawl one hex of movement. So all my stacks that did not actually assault are going to go ahead and do their one hex of movement. Like, notice, as I belly crawl into this hex, I obviously am not allowed to assault these guys, because I've already had my assault turn. These guys are staying put. These guys are... do I want... if I belly crawl, I wind up right in that flare light. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, come on.
Nope. I see what you did there. I see your little plan. I ain't falling for it, Piotr. I ain't falling for it. I am the Viet Minh, and darkness is my friend. Now, all cheekiness aside, that flare did still buy him something, because what I meant to do was to belly crawl into this barbed wire, and thus be in immediate position to assault him next turn. I don't want to risk that right now, because if I move into hex F7, Foxtrot 7, or Foxtrot 8, I will be illuminated, and then he calls in mortars on me. So either way, he stops me. Is the long and short of that. But honestly, Piotr's been in like 4 Valor Victory games now, and I've lost too many of them. So I'm actually trying to do Uncle Ho proud on this one. And I've only got 1 victory hex down and 4 more to go, and I've already taken pretty bad losses. I'm not even trying to keep caches. I've been deleting hexes. I'm deleting counters off the map rather than putting them off to the side on some of them. But yeah, I've basically already lost 2 full platoons, if not 3 full platoons. That's like a quarter of my force. Just taking the first objective hex. This is going to come down to it. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but I'm going to run out of time and I'm going to run out of bodies at a shocking rate. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll see how this game shakes out. The last thing we're going to try and do is rally some of these pinned down Viet Minh units at the end of the turn. I have a -1 officer in here, so the normal roll is 6 or less for normal troops. That applies to the Viet Minh. Does not apply for him, guys, because he's elite French Foreign Legion. That's the E in the upper right hand corner there. But I'm not elite, so it's just going to be a regular 6. I get to roll a 7 or less because I have a +1 officer in that same hex. So this guy here has to roll a 7 or less, and he still manages to fail with a 9, so he remains pinned down. Next, I have this guy over here, -0 officer, so again, he has to roll a 6 or less on 2d6. He rolls boxcars, holy crap, he is literally in a fetal position in the bottom of a crater, crying for Uncle Ho. Uncle Ho, you didn't say it was going to be like this. So he is, yeah, both rally, I have one more rally attempt here in the bunker. Again, -0 officer, so no bonus on my, no bonus for me. 7, he barely failed. So all 3 rally attempts have failed. That is the end of Viet Minh turn 1. We'll now head over to French turn 1. We start off with your command phase, and what that means is everything that was pinned down automatically rallies.
So we have the officers and the squads. Okay.
Okay, and now you call in fire missions if you want.
Well, Lima 7 seems to be a good target, but I don't know if I can see them because they did not shoot.
Yes. An assault counts as an attack. Oh, Lima 7 did not. You're adjacent to Lima 7.
Oh yeah, I am. So yeah, 1 light barrage on Lima 7.
Okay. Now the only semi-bad news is that's not an officer, so you won't be able to use any bonus on this. And I'll get +2 for trenches. because the officer technically can't see him. The officer is 2 hexes away, and that stack hasn't fired yet. That officer can totally see this stack, because they conducted an assault. They saw that. There was gunfire and muzzle flashes and all that shit. So I will go ahead and put the light barrage. Come on, Excel. There we go. I'll put the light barrage on Lima 7.
And a second one on Mike 8.
Alright, cool. Hey, Gaz has joined the stream.
Hi,
What's
guys.
going on, Mr. Gaz? How you doing? We're doing a Tuesday bonus stream here. We're going to wrap up our Dien Bien Phu series to make way for more 13 hours to 13 days and to more Painsleer 1940 later on in the week, hopefully. Okay, so those are the 2 missions. Roll 1d6. Now these are onboard missions, so they have the normal hit chance. 1 to 4 is a hit. 5 drift by 1. 6 drift by 2. Roll a d6 to see where the first one where the first one lands.
So it's a 4.
It lands where it's supposed to.
And the second one, it's a 4.
Cool. They both land where they're supposed to. This one came in without any kind of officer bonus, so it's on the yellow table, add 2. So yellow roll, 2d6, add 2 to the result.
Oh, 6.
6 becomes an 8. That is 3 casualty points on those guys in the trench. Alrighty. So I will do what I'm going to call the Viet Minh shuffle, because I do this like every turn. Knock down full squad to half squad, pin the half squad remaining. It's the Ho Chi Minh shuffle. We're doing fine, Gaz. Hey, Rasmus, what's going on, sir?
Hello, Rasmus.
Gaz says, I'm okay, guys. Hope you two are well. Dude, it's the middle of the day and we're wargaming. I'm living the dream. Living the dream.
Couldn't be better.
It's the middle of the day on a Tuesday. It's not even a weekend. And not only am I wargaming, I might actually win one for a change. Yeah, I'm living the life right here. This is great. Send it back.
So actually, this is why you hear everything with a 2-minute, pause or a latency, so that when he rolls bad, we can cut it out and do it once again.
No, Gaz would call me out if I did that. Gaz calls me out when I roll dice and the webcam is on. Yeah, so Gaz is here to keep me honest. What he doesn't know is that I have a dice that has all 1s on it. You just don't know it. And so when I roll, it's, hey, look, I got another 1. So, no, but seriously. All right, so now let's do the other one. Same roll. Oh, no, not the same roll. +2 for rubble, -2 because Captain Schmitz saw that and he called in that mission himself. He gets to apply his -2 commander bonus to it.
Yep. And it's a 7.
7 stays a 7, +2, -2. So that is 4 casualty points against that stack. Oh my god. You see what I mean? I've lost all the ability to carry the assault into this victory hex and that victory hex. If I'm going to attack those 2 victory hexes now, with all these damage he's done to me, he literally outnumbers me here along this arc now. I'm going to have to wait for these guys to come up. And again, it's just going to take up time. I know I keep saying this, but I'm going to keep on saying it. This game is not as unbalanced as it looks. It's probably unbalanced, but I don't think it's as unbalanced as it looks at first review. What's going on, Rasmus? How you doing? That is a lot of pre-VC. It's a lot less, because he's already killed at least 1 company's worth. I mean, seriously, that first battalion down here is down to less than 50% strength. And now it's, yeah, now we're going to finish up the rest of his turn, I'm sorry to say. He did use up almost all of his grenades, and he did use up all of his artillery. I have 3 more heavy barrages I'm totally going to use, plus my recoilless rifles are going to do their thing. with their -2 commanders. I'm hoping I survive until turn 2 to actually get to use any of that stuff. And again, I'm on the clock. All right, so it's now your turn. Well, it's already your turn. It's your direct fire phase, is what I meant to say.
Okay. So let's start with Schmidt. Because he's thinking that he doesn't like the guys that took the destroyed bunker, and he will try to shoot them in a direct fire.
Okay, he can totally do that. The only thing he can't do is apply his -2, because he
Yep.
applied his -2 to the mortar mission. So that's going to be 4 points. You're on the red row. Add 2 to the result for my cover.
Now it's a 6, becomes an 8, so nothing.
Cool. You got a half squad in that house in Mike 6.
Yep, and they will try to shoot the same hex.
Okay. 3 plus 2. Go ahead.
It's a 3.
3 becomes a 5. That's 2 more casualty points. Oh no. Okay. I guess Kilo 6 is next.
Yes, but they can see only the guys in the rubble, I believe. Yes, they cannot see the guys in Lima 7 just because.
Technically, they're in a crater hex, not a trench hex. So they are not below ground, so to speak. Those trenches are kind of caved in from artillery fire. So by the strict rules of the game, they're not in a trench hex. So the line of sight permutations for trenches do not apply here. He can he's at ground level. He can see everybody, and everybody can see him. That's the good news. The bad news for him is that he's in a crater hex. Craters only give +1 cover, not +2 for a trench. Craters are not as deep as trenches. That's kind of a caved-in series of trenches.
But I have a question. Can he see the guy in India 8 that was assaulting last turn?
India 8. Where's India 8? India 8. Can he see India 8? Technically, yes. Because Kilo 6 is not in a trench hex. So even though India 8 is in a trench hex, he's shooting down into the trench.
Yep.
If
so we'll try to do
if it wasn't for those craters, no. You can't see from a trench to another trench that is not adjacent. Because you're both more or less underground, quote unquote. Again, those trenches are caved in. You only get a -1 cover bonus for that. So you're considered like normal terrain. You're above ground. It's a little broken up. It's +1 movement rate and it's +1 for terrain bonus. It's broken ground basically, but it's not a trench. So Kilo 6 can see India 8. Yes.
And he will try to shoot it.
Okay. If it's 1, 2, 3, you can do it at +1 for darkness. Oh, I forgot to apply a +1 darkness for this. Don't worry about it. +1 for darkness because he's not illuminated and you're shooting at muzzle flashes. But yep. So it's 6 +1 +2 for the trench. So 6. Add 3 to the result.
Okay. It's a 4.
4 becomes 7. That is 1 casualty point.
Now, so the guys at Kilo 7 will try to shoot your guys at Lima 7.
Lima 7 is being fired on by... I'm sorry, who's shooting at me in...
Kilo 7.
Kilo 7. Gotcha. Oh, right next to me. Okay, cool. Oh man, that's a pretty powerful force too. 9 points, point blank. It's not it's not opportunity fire, so you don't get the +2. I still get trench bonus. There's no officer in there, so it's 9 points, no darkness penalty. +2 for trenches, unless you want to throw one of your last grenades in there.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So 9, add 2.
Oh. And it's a 5.
Dice on the table.
Yep.
That is 7 points. That is 1 casualty point. I'm just going to go ahead and knock off this pinned down squad. what is Erasmus? What is WOW Vietnam Buildings? Is that a company I don't know the abbreviation for? Yeah, Rasmus. He's definitely gonna kill me. It's whether or not he can kill me fast enough. So I'm not sure what WOW Vietnam Buildings. I know what Vietnam Buildings are, obviously, on Kickstarter. That might be a company I'm not familiar with. Alrighty. Cool. So I took off that half squad that was pinned down already. That accounted for my one casualty point. So he's fired. He's fired. He's fired. 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 Oh wait, no. J5 hasn't fired yet. Sorry.
No.
All right.
And he will not fire, but I believe that Hotel 8.
Okay.
What did they want to fire? God damn it. No. That they.
All right. Hotel 8 is holding fire. Juliet 5 is holding fire. Just to keep everything organized. Is Juliet 7 gonna fire?
Yeah, Juliet 7 is going to fire, and
Okay.
he's going to. And he will try to hit your guys in India 8.
Oh no. Okay. +2 for trenches, and that's it. So red row +2.
Oh, it's a 7.
7
So
becomes a
nothing.
9. Missed.
Okay, and that's it for my direct fire phase.
Okay. We now go to your movement phase. Nobody that fired can move.
So Hotel 8 will get into that bunker at Golf 8.
Bunker at Golf 8. Okay, cool.
It's that bunker, the trouble at Golf 8.
Yeah, what was a bunker? All right, so Golf 8. Are they gonna move or?
No, the Hotel 8 guys are going to move
Oh, sorry.
into Golf 8.
I do apologize. Sometimes I'm watching the chat and I miss what you're saying there. Hue Railroad Station. Yeah, anything in Hue is gonna get a thumbs up from me. That's for sure. Cool. All right. Other movement.
And Juliet 5
Yep.
will move into the crater at India 7.
Get to those medics.
And then we'll do a French shuffle, and the medics will go into Hotel 6. And I believe 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I can do that. And we will take the guys in Papa 4 and move them into November 7. Because they can, yes? We'll
November 7. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
1,
Hexes.
2, 3. They can do that without ever leaving the trenches. Cool.
Yes. And that's it for my movement. Because...
Cool. Okay, now it's time for my opportunity fire / defensive fire, of which we will have much. She liked the choppers. I would never believe that. It was the one that has a Huey and a Cobra, which she really liked. Yeah, cool. I have no Cobras for my 50mm Vietnam Force. I do have a fleet of 4 UH-1H Huey gunships. Now, I did those for the Vietnam article series I did on Tabletop a while ago. I do not have any, I wasn't really able to find a Huey set. For some reason, I couldn't get one from Battlefront at the time. I think they were out of stock or something, or I don't know. So I had to go to Revel and buy 1 to 100 model sets. It had like 96 pieces in each one, and I did that 4 times. And I had to do the whole thing in like 2 days because I had to write an article series, and I needed the photos to go with the article series, and blah blah blah. That was a rough weekend, but they look good now. I remember those. They look fantastic. They're a little fragile for gaming pieces because they're technically Revel model kits. They're not really even miniatures technically. And yeah, man. Friggin', what was I gonna say? Like 18 pieces of clear plastic for the glass. between the side doors, the canopy, the part of the canopy that's overhead, the part of the canopy that's underneath, like down where the foot pedals are, so the pilots can see when they're landing. There's a lot of glass in those Hueys. That was a lot of fun to do 4 times in a rush with Rebel model kits. Okay, so here come. I'm gonna start with Viet Minh direct fire. So these guys never actually fired at me, so I don't think I can see them yet. These guys did fire at us. Or did they?
They did not.
No, they didn't. Okay, never mind. Cool. J7 did, though. J7's in trouble. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're in range. I have 15 recoilless rifle points in there. With a -2 commander, +2 for your trenches, +1 for darkness. So I'm going to do a total of +1 net. Turn on Mr. Webcam. 15 at +1 net. That is a 6. That becomes a 7. With the +1. 7 at 15 is 2 casualty points on that stack in Juliet 7.
So they die.
Pretty sure they are destroyed. So this is where that flare has really kind of helped him out and saved him, even though he didn't get to kill any of my guys. If that flare had not been in place, that would have if the flare had not been there, I would have used the advance and assault phase at the end of Viet Minh turn 1 to advance into Foxtrot 7 and Foxtrot 8. That makes me adjacent to him. All these guys will be able to take direct fire on him right now, whether he fired or not. So by dropping that flare in there... Oh, what am I talking about? You're in flare. I can see you. I can use the light from your flare. I can fire. Shit. Alright, so these 15 +2 -2, he's going to fire his recoilless rifles into that hex. You're illuminated by your own flare. Alright. Oh, shit. So, again, +1... no darkness penalty because you're under a flare. +2 for bunker, -2 for my officer. That's 15 at 4. That is 5 casualty points.
So I believe they are toast.
I believe they are toast. Holy shit. I totally forgot about that. Oh no! There goes the 50 cal. Luckily, in this game, you cannot capture enemy support weapons. Advanced squad leader lets you do it, but it gets too much. It gets too complicated.
Oh yeah.
Also, in modern warfare, there's so many support weapons, it's not even worth it. Formal or whatever, like official Valor and Victory has this whole mechanic called the fire lane, which you can use with light support weapons like machine guns to set up like this continuous belt of fire that has like this low, almost like grazing fire, like this low intensity kind of area denial kind of a fire. You have to be at least a light machine gun to fire it. The problem with modern warfare is that every fire team has at least one light machine gun in it, so everybody can do it. So it just becomes pointless.
I don't remember. The fire lane was on the red row, yes? When it comes to the power of the fire.
Yep, it's on the red row and attacks everything that passes through it. So basically just like pins people down usually. It's an area denial weapon, or I should say effect. You have to have at least a machine gun to do it, but again, in most modern conflicts, everyone's got a machine gun. Like literally every fire team. Not these guys, but this isn't really modern, this is 1954. So to set up fire lanes in post like 1960 infantry combat almost becomes almost becomes pointless because the entire map would be fire lane counters. I mean, it would be absurd. All right, cool. So that's my direct fire there. This guy did not shoot, and he's out of illumination from that flare, so I'm going to go ahead and leave him alone. So none of these guys can shoot. That's going to be it for my defensive. Oh, these guys are right adjacent to you. 1, 6, and 7 is a total of 13 points. Point blank, although it's not opportunity fire, since you didn't move there. I'm going to throw in one of my last grenades for a -1. 13 -1. +2 for your trenches, -1 for my grenade. 13 -1. I'm on the gray row. Webcam. And a 7 + 1 net makes it an 8. That is 1 freaking casualty point.
So let's pin the half squad.
See, that grenade did something. Even though he's elite, he's probably going to rally at the end of his phase. All right, that's going to be it for my defensive fire. I can't. That assault marker is no longer valid. He's pinned.
You can stay there.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think here. This guy can't help, but these guys down here can sort of help. There's no longer a bunker there. It's no longer blocking line of sight. Although, no, because you haven't fired yet. And therefore I can't see you. Sorry. These guys haven't fired yet. These guys have. It's going to be a total of 8 points. +2 for trenches. Actually +3 because of also +1 for darkness. So 8 points at +3. That's another good roll, man. 3 +3 for bonuses makes 7 on the 8. That is 1 more casualty point.
Okay, so let's pin the full squad.
Alright, and everybody else is either out of range or pinned down or can't see or whatever. Cool, that'll be it for defensive fire for the Viet Minh. Over to French, advance and assault phase.
Okay, question. If I assault a hex where there are only pinned units, do I suffer any casualties?
Nope. If there are only pinned units in there, you get the hex for free. So if you assault a hex and there are some pinned units and some not, you do the normal procedure, just you completely ignore the pinned units. The pinned units are automatically eliminated as soon as you step in the hex, and then you resolve the assault with any other units that weren't pinned. That goes for calculating the odds, and that goes for casualty assessment. So there were no infantry units in there that were in good order, so yeah, you get the hex for free.
Bazinga.
And he's retaking the objective hex. God damn it.
Only temporarily. I'm thinking if it's worth to assault from India 7 into India 8 because reasons. You blew the guys up in your direct fire phase. Will it buy me any time? Not really.
Well, it would eliminate an officer, but a pretty crappy one. India 8. It's just an officer and a support weapon, and he's pinned down, so it would be a free one.
Yeah, it makes no sense. But I will withdraw these guys into Hotel 6.
It's a little French Alamo right there.
Yeah.
Alamo!
And that will be all.
Alright, so we will now go to your casualty evacuation phase. I think there's a medic in there. Medic automatically evacuates a casualty. Again, this is mostly for just for record keeping at this point. And what was the other thing? Roll 3d6s for these guys and roll 1d6 for this guy, please.
Okay. So it's a 1, it's a 5, it's a 3, and it's a 5.
Okay. That does not conclude the turn. You get to roll rallies. These two guys get to rally on a 7 or less because they're elite.
It's a 3
So the half squad rallies.
And a 7.
They both make it. See, that 7 would have failed if you were regular, but you're elite, so it succeeds.
This is how you earn iron crosses.
I will show you where the iron crosses grow. Or Croix de Guerre, or whatever a Foreign Legion, what a Legionnaire is eligible for. Okay, that wraps up turn 1. Believe it or not, wraps up turn 1. One whole battalion has already basically died, and about a third of your force, if not more. Holy crap!
It's going to be a short one.
Yeah, it's looking
and bloody.
All right, cool. So I'll go ahead and keep the stream moving here with. Yeah, balancing these Dien Bien Phu games have been tough. The first one went well. The second two were wildly slanted toward the defense. That first try at Beatrice 2, I lost an entire battalion in like one turn. The game was over by turn 2, like flat out, complete tabled for the Viet Minh. It's supposed to be a 6-turn game. We fixed it. The French still won. The second game was pretty badly. I think the Viet Minh technically won, although I didn't take all the objectives. I won on casualty points, but as far as being able to take one of these objectives, I don't know. Hopefully, I didn't overcorrect here.
I believe the first recon game we played in the jungle, there was a French victory. Then we had this first attempt at Beatrice where what you said, you were tabled at turn 1, and the second one was a draw.
Okay.
The second attempt was
That's
a draw.
right.
Then you won.
We had exactly like 149 to 49. Yeah, the first like the French paratrooper patrol game out in the jungle was definitely a French victory, but the game was balanced because those are easier to do. Those are like meeting engagements out in the jungle. As a designer, but these assaults on fortified positions are, which is weird. I didn't have this kind of trouble in World War I. Like my Bellawood games, my French assault on the 100 days games, things like that. All right, so my guys all rally automatically. Time to call in some off-board missions. This guy fired at me. This guy fired at me. I saw it. I'm gonna call in my last heavy barrages.
You see those muzzle flashes? I don't want to.
Alright, now let's see what happens with them. They're visible from this officer here who's calling them in. So it's going to be a -0 attack. That's if they hit. Alright, the first two landing on that house. One hits, one misses. So the one that misses drifts by 1 hex into direction 5.
Lima 6, yes?
Yep, so that one missed pretty much. It didn't do anything. But the first one hit. And it hits on -0, and you get plus 2 for buildings, for light buildings. So it's orange row +2. +2. Alright, pick up Mr. Webcam again. And my dice seem to be deserting me a little bit. That is going to be a 9 plus 2 is 11. That is 1 casualty point on this hex.
Pin the medics.
Pin the medics! Right when I started to feel sorry for him, now my dice decide to start shitting the bed. And now my artillery is doing its typical Viet Minh, we miss everything. Alright, this last barrage over here on November 6th. That lands where it's supposed to. Cool. So that is +1 because he's in craters, not in trenches. So it's it's 2d6 on the orange row. Add 1 to the result. Mr. Schmitz, I told you pissed me off at the beginning of the game. Now it's time to pay. Holy crap! An 11 becomes 1 is 12. No effect. Schmitz picked up that artillery shell. He caught it out of the air and threw it back at me. Son of a bitch.
He's still pissing you off.
Yeah, he is. That Schmitz guy, man. I don't like him one bit.
You didn't kill me under Stalingrad, you won't kill me here.
Yep. I've survived worse than this. That's how he wound up in the Foreign Legion. He could have been like a French prisoner of war after the war, or he could have been joined the Foreign Legion.
Yeah.
That was disappointing. Okay, looks like that's the end of my artillery, by the way. I have no more artillery. So, now we're going to the direct fire phase. I guess we have to do this the old-fashioned way. Fine. This guy assaulted me. I saw that. So here comes 15 points and recoilless rifle fire. Oh no! That's my M18 57mm recoilless rifle. 3 guns under command of a captain. So that is going to be a total of 15, minus 2, plus 2 for rubble, plus 1 for darkness. 15 plus 1 is the net. There we go. A 4 plus 1 net becomes a 5. On the 15 table, that is 4 casualty points.
So they're gone.
Yay! When off-board artillery fails, on-board artillery picks up the slack.
Yeah, I noticed that these recoilless rifles of yours are doing the job during our games.
They've been terrible in games 2 and 3, but so far in game 4 they've been kicking ass. They totally emptied out this bunker here, or former bunker. He has no targets because these guys still haven't shot at us yet. And they're out of range for everything else, so they're just going to stay put for now. Does anyone else want to do any fire? Nobody else has that many targets. Technically, these guys are already close enough to assault, so they don't have to move. They're going to go ahead and take a shot into Kilo 7. I have a total of 6, 13 points, plus 2 for trenches. So 13, gray column, add 2 to the result. 6 plus 2 is 8, is the final number. That is 1 casualty point on this stack here.
Yep, so let's pin the half squad.
Again, pin him again! Alright, that will be it for my direct fire. It is now time to go to Viet Minh movement, where I'm sure I will trigger much opportunity fire. But for now, this flare is down to...
There's almost no one left to shoot at you.
That's the way we like it. That's what Uncle Ho's been saying the whole time. Uncle Ho and Jap, you guys are finally getting it right after 4 tries.
Go team.
Yep. All right, so Viet Minh movement starts off in barbed wire, so he's going to spend his turn to move out of barbed wire. How stupid do I want to be here? He can't use that mortar within 2 hexes. So that this hex here, guys, is a little weaker than it looks. 79th Battalion is pretty much gone. They're more or less impaling themselves on French defenses at this point. They're trying to soften things up for 100 for when 18th Battalion comes in from the west and hopefully wins the game. So that's 1, 2, 3 to jump out of the trench, 4 to enter into a crater, and because there's no officer there, that's as far as they can move. That might not have been the smartest move on my part. That's move through the gap in the barbed wire, move into the barbed wire, and then I have to stop. Two to enter a crater, 2 to enter rubble, that's 4. Oh, somebody making some tea? 1, 2,
4. That doesn't look good.
No, that's definitely not too pretty.
It's like on May 7th when they declared the ceasefire, and it was in many books you have this account where the Viet Minh guys were screaming to the French guys, and it was something like, "Is it over? Yes. No more shooting? No. Good."
Right. Just tell me it's done. Yeah. All right. So for this guy here, what was that, Lieutenant? Ding dong. Come on, Excel. Lieutenant Marceau. Lieutenant Marceau, does it feel like you're in Dien Bien Phu yet? Are you getting the Dien Bien Phu experience? I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
Do you have a second to talk about communism?
Yep. Avon calling. Have you found Jesus? Have you found Uncle Ho? I have not found Uncle Ho. You're about to find Uncle Ho. We are going to convert you to the one true faith. Jehovah's Witnesses for Uncle Ho. They call them Uncle Ho's Witnesses. Okay, that's going to be it for my movement. Here comes some opportunity fire, I'm sure.
Oh yes, and it's not going to be bloody. Okay, so let's start maybe from right to left. So with Smith, he will try to shoot the guys. This Nguyen Kun.
Yes, I think you have 2 grenades left. Yep.
Yeah, and we will use 1.
Alright.
Go on that.
So, there's a bunch of bonuses here. -2 for his command bonus. -1 for his grenade. -2 more for point blank opportunity fire. I do get +2 for my trench, so it goes back down to a -3.
Okay.
So it is a total. Now you can't use the mortar, but the mortar crew can fire their personal weapons. It's 4 points at a net of -3.
Okay. And it's a 6.
6 becomes a 3. Alright, Excel is totally frozen up here. Hold on 1 moment. Trying to slice the base for a brown water patrol boat. That'd be cool. Like Res was like one of the PCRs that they had in Vietnam. That's either going to be in like the Saigon River going up through Hobo Woods, or of course the Mekong Delta has all kinds of rivers in it. Okay, so we were on the red row, and we got an adjusted 3, if memory serves. That's 3 casualty points. shuffle. Okay. Additional opportunity fire.
Kilo 6, sorry, Kilo 7. We'll try to shoot you at Lima 7.
Okay. That is 6 points. I did not move, so I do not get opportunity fire bonus. So it's just going to be 6 points plus 2.
Yeah. So maybe
Now, if you shot at Juliet 7, those guys did move.
that's true. But it's a lost cause anyway, and you have an assault plan from what we see. Okay, no, okay,
Well,
let's
in all
go.
honesty, Juliet 7 can assault you as well. So it's,
Yeah, that's true. So maybe let's shoot at Juliet 7 because then we will have the plus 2
yep, plus
and
2.
minus 2 bonus.
Yep, minus 2 bonus, plus 2 for trenches. It comes out to a wash. At least now you're not shooting at a -2 penalty. So it's
Yep.
6 points at no bonus, no
And
penalty.
it's an 11.
Oh, no effect after all that talk. All right. How about Kilo 6? Kilo 6 can see pretty much everything. Because again, he's
Yeah.
not in a trench, which is good
Kilo
news.
6.
Yeah.
Kilo 6 will try to shoot these guys in India 7
Okay.
because they were moving.
Yep. And I only have craters,
That's true.
so it is +1, 6 + 1.
But I cannot see you because you didn't shoot yet.
Technically, that's true. Yep.
That's true. So and also so. So they cannot see anyone actually. No, they can see these, but they can see the guys in Hotel 7
They can
because they are
see Hotel.
7 because they are illuminated by the flare.
They are illuminated. Yeah, you can see those 3 counters there. You can also see Lima 7 because Lima 7 did fire.
Oh, that's true. So this is a -2 and here is a -2. So let's shoot at Lima 7 because
Okay.
it makes sense.
Just add 2 for trenches.
Oh, Snake Eyes.
Ooh. All right. So first of all, Snake Eyes becomes a 4 for trenches. So that is 4 casualty points. I'm just gonna go ahead and knock 1 squad right out of there. And roll a 6 or less, but he's elite. Make that 7 or less. 7 or less on 2d6. See if he can become valorous.
Nope, 11.
Cool. All right. And now I think that just leaves us with. Is he fired? Technically, he hasn't fired yet. The guy in the house hasn't fired, and poor Marceau, his little group, hasn't fired yet.
So let's take this guys in the house and let's try to shoot the guys in November 7.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead. It is -2.
No,
Go ahead.
he cannot see them because they did not shoot yet. Yes. So Lima 7.
All right. Yep. +2 for trenches.
That's a 10.
All right. No effect. Marceau and his guys have all kinds of targets. He can see all those guys.
But I believe that the guys that are in the craters are the best, bet because it's only a -1 for your +1 for your craters.
If you just want to just straight out kill people, those guys to the northwest are in open.
Oh yeah, that's true. No, they are in craters too. Yes.
This guy is not in craters.
Oh,
This
guy
guy
in
is
up
not in
north.
crater.
Yes.
That guy is in a crater. Yeah. Open. I think he's in open.
So let's try to kill those guys that are with the -1 officer. So the ones
Yep.
that you are in.
He is. He's straight out in the open. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6
And
points.
my
-1.
and
-2
my last
for.
grenade.
Okay. -2 for point blank opportunity fire in the open. -1 for commander. -1 for your last grenade is -4. You're at 6 points. So you're on the gray row. I'm sorry, the white row. -4.
Ooh, another Snake Eyes.
Oh, awesome. Alright, so Snake Eyes, again, he's already at the bottom of the table there, but that is going to be 6 casualty points.
So this Viet Minh shuffle is almost like, you know, the crazy Ivan from Hunt of the Red October.
This was a little worse than the usual Viet Minh shuffle there, because I had to remove 2 full squads. Okay, now let's check for some valorous units. Marceau becomes valorous on a 8 or less.
It's a 7.
He becomes valorous. The half squad in there becomes valorous on a 3 +1 +1 on a 5 or less.
Okay. It's an 8.
Okay. So Marceau doubles versus assaults. He gets to ignore the first casualty point. He literally just takes it on the chin. I tell you what, man, if there was ever a time to become valorous, it's when you're surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and a half, 7 and a half, 8 and a half, 9 and a half, 10 and a half, 11 and a half, 11 and a half squads. 11 times, no, 11.5 times 8. 92 men plus officers. 1, 2, 3 officers. 4 officers. God, yeah, he's literally surrounded by 96 men. And he's practically by himself. Marceau, for the death that you're about to endure, your countrymen will never forget you. Let's just put it that way. All right, cool.
So let's go into your assault and advance phase.
I think I'll have some assaults and advance phase, so that's okay. All right, so we'll do this one in the center first because it's easy. All right, so he goes in there. The first thing that happens is that that pinned down half squad is automatically eliminated. Then I have 1, 5, and 2. Gives me 7. Oh, this is gonna be terrible. That's okay. I'm gonna assault you twice. So we're looking at no, I'm serious. Because I'm totally gonna fail this first one, but it's gonna chew you down. All right, so I've got 1, 5, and 2. That gives me a total of 8 points versus your 6. 1-to-1 odds, no penalties, no bonuses. I'm not going to throw in my last grenade because it's a waste. I have to roll a 6 or less on 2d6. Koi Van Ho, if you pull this off, you will be a +1 officer in the next game, I promise.
This is the last game.
But I doubt it. Because, yeah, he failed. Alright, so that's a failed assault. A failed assault is I have to take number of casualties equal to number of troops or number of infantry units in the hex plus terrain bonus plus the amount by which I missed the assault. So by which I missed the assault roll. So 1 infantry unit, 2 for trenches, and I missed the roll by 2, so a total of 5 casualty points. 1, 2, 3, 4 destroyed, and he's pinned. You have to take casualty points equal to the number of infantry units that were in the assault. I have an officer and a full squad, so that's 2. You have to take 2 casualty points.
So let's make a half squad out of this full squad. That's the only option.
Right? And that's when the second assault comes in from the other side. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Versus 3. So that's 3-to-1 because you always round in favor of the defender. 3-to-1. I have a -1 officer in there, so it's 3-to-1 -1. I'm going to go ahead and not throw in my last grenade. 3-to-1 -1. So I have to roll basically a 10 or less. 7, or I'm sorry, a 6, that's a successful assault. So now that other unit is destroyed. That's going to be 3 unsecured casualty points. However, one infantry unit plus 2 for the trenches means I have to take 3 casualty points. Half squad, knock down a full squad to a half squad, pin the half squad.
Nice.
That's how you do like multi-phased assaults. Alright, then we're going to do this one, which is probably also going to fail. Oh, there's a sapper in there though. Hey! Alright, sapper, you know what to do. Alright, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus your 1, 2, 3, 4. That mortar can't help. The mortar crew can. So it's still 1 to 1. Subtract, add 2 for your officer. Subtract 2 for my sapper. It's 1 to 1. I have to roll a 6 or less. This assault is going to fail. Oh boy. Unless I want to throw in a grenade.
Come
but even
on.
then it's only going to be a 7 or less. Alright, Schmitz.
You can do this.
Schmitz, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. That is 2 and 1. That's a successful assault. Schmitz, that's it. You're dead. However, Schmitz has probably wiped out my own team as well. There are 2 infantry units in there, and I have to pay 1 for the crater. Is 3 casualty points that went into that assault. Oh, and the sapper blew himself up. So, yeah, there's only 3 casualty points in there. Well, I can take Tim 2 out, and I can pin the officer. So that officer had better rally, or he's going to get counter-assaulted next turn. And again, it's kind of stupid for me to even be tracking this at this point, but just because I started. I can pay the price the French can't. 79th Infantry Battalion is gone. It's literally a couple of pinned fire teams. The whole battalion is wiped out. I have another battalion coming in, and that's the rub. But yeah, I mean, there's still. I have to take 2 more casualty, 2 more victory hexes. 3. This house is a victory hex. So I'm still not even close to winning this game, at least not on the timeline. I think I'm going to win it by turn 4 or so, but turn 5 maybe. But again, it's going to take the whole damn game. And even then, if I table the French, that's only a historical result. I have to wipe out the French entirely. I have to match the historical result. I have to take all the victory hexes. Yes, I have a huge advantage in numbers. I also carry the burden of victory. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm not saying that this game isn't unfair or whatever, but I keep saying it. I don't think it's as unfair as it looks.
No, I'm quite happy with the results so far. I thought that, by turn 1, basically we'll wrap up this left side of the table, but the flare stopped you for a second, and I did quite good on the, east side with the 79th Infantry Battalion.
79th is basically shattered. There's literally 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 13 men left. Is that another half squad under there? Nope. There are 13 men left out of a battalion. Battalion. This is a real battalion, not a, it's a 600 men, 13 are left. Now granted, they only went in here with 4 companies instead of 6. I'm sorry, 2 companies instead of 3, but still, the losses on that southern shoulder have been total. Fortunately, things are going a little bit better for me on this side. So let's wrap up the assaults here. Oh my lord.
You have an infinite number of assaults over here.
Alright, I'm going to try to do this without using up one of my better units. Okay, so this hex is gonna launch the assault. 1, 5. So Gaz says I blame the overall commander. Okay, Gaz, that's fine. Gaz will get in his shots, and that's totally cool because that's how we roll on Sitrep podcast. It's all fine. Seriously, I'm just playing around. Okay, so we got 6, 11. So I can add numbers. 15 total points versus your. Now the medic does count as 2. That's why the medic. This almost never happens. So 2-second explain for people in the chat. The medic has a 0 combat rating. The medic's not supposed to be shooting at people, so he's got a 0. However, when he's assaulted, when he's in a hex that's under assault, he's going to defend himself. He's going to defend his casualties. That's the asterisk. That reminds the player that medics get counted as they get counted as 2 officers. Basically, it's a 2-man medic team. So they get a 2 factor when it comes to calculating versus an assault. So it's 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 3 is 7, plus 1 is 8, versus, what did I say? Ooh, what a difference. 3 and 2 is 5, 1 is 6. So if it wasn't for that medic rule, I would have 15 versus 6, 2 to 1. But because that medic pulls out his little carbine and starts kicking some ass, your stack now goes to 8. 8 versus 15 is wait for it, it's 1 to 1. Because you always round in favor of the defender. No matter how terrible the math is. So that is a 1 to 1 odds. We both have +1 officers. Oh, also one of your guys is Valorous. So he actually counts as 2 points, not 1. So it's definitely 1 to 1. Oh boy. Alright, I can't forget that Valorous rule. So that stack, as long as Marceau's with them, gets to ignore the first casualty point. It just doesn't count. When Valorous units really get scary is when you get 2 or 3, or God's help you, even 4 Valorous units in a stack. They ignore the first 4 casualty points. They just don't count. I've seen it happen once or twice. It's Marines on Okinawa and French Paras in the Falklands. Not French. I'm sorry. British Paras in the Falklands. It was it was not cool. I think it was on Tumbledown, June of 1982. Okay, so oh my God, I'm gonna definitely throw in my last grenade on this one. My last grenade, and I have a sapper. Alright, so it's 1 for my grenade, 2 for my sapper, 1 for my officer, equals a total of -4. You have -1, gives a grand total of -3 to me. -3 to me on an assault at 1 to 1. So I have to roll a 9 or less. I could blow this. I did not. Alright, cool. So that stack is wiped out. However, so he ignores the first casualty point. That stack is still wiped out. But that's going to be another casualty point to me. So that's 1, 2 casualty points, 3 casualty points. The medic counts 4 casualty points, 5, 6 casualty points for the trench. So a total of 6 casualty points. That doesn't count. He's already destroyed. Oh my God! I threw your grenade in there. That was supposed to be my last grenade.
No worries.
Yeah, you threw in your last grenade. I just didn't get rid of the counter. Sorry. So I said 6 casualty points. Destroyed, and down to 2. Yeah, so you wiped out the majority of that attack, but in it went. And claim that X. Alright, cool. Wrapping up super fast the rest of my advanced and assault phase. They assaulted, so they're not moving.
Well, these guys were certainly paying attention to these Chinese advisors that taught them the human wave tactics.
Oh yeah. You know, on the Sitrep, I mean, I'm not complaining at all, but the Sitrep podcast channel, when we're doing these games with community members, like Damon always wants to play the Israelis in Arab-Israeli wars. I've lost track of how many times I've had to play the Germans in Panzer Leader, but the Germans are actually usually the better side, at least in terms of equipment. I've always having to play the Egyptians. I got to play the Viet Minh. I got to play the Viet Cong. I got to play the NBA. I got to play the PLO. I got to play the Argentinians. I'm getting good at playing the big, squishy, kind of meathead faction when it's just mass all your trash together and just attack with everything. It's oddly liberating when you literally don't care about your casualties. It's kind of weird. But to super quick wrap up my turn here, I'm going to try and rally some of these units. -1 officer in the hex, so he has to roll a 7 or less. He rolls a 10, he still manages to fail. This lieutenant, hey lieutenant, how about you guys rally, because you guys have almost won this game, for a change. He fails, because he's a non-elite unit, and he needed a 6 or less. This guy gets to roll a 6 or less, because he cannot apply his leadership bonus to himself while he's pinned. So he also has to roll a 6 or less. He barely succeeds. And last but not least, this guy here in November 7. 6 or less. He fails. I don't know why all my Viet Minh are so timid. We're actually winning a battle for a change. And,
They're surprised.
yeah, they're not scared as much as they're confused. They're like, we're inside the French fortification and about half of us are still alive. Something's wrong. Something is very, very wrong. What's going on here? Oh my god, look at all these casualties. Look at all this carnage from one assault. Let's go ahead and bulldoze all that stuff off the table. I'm not even going to count the casualties that were in that. Who cares? Okay, so now it's over to your turn, too.
Let's see. What can we do?
Oh, first thing, your medic automatically rallies.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'm just going by the turn sequence. We're trying to recreate Dien Bien Phu, so yes.
Yeah, you get the feeling, when it comes to this scenario.
Rasmus says, "Hey, I played PLO. This is true. I keep forgetting about my my Leroy Jenkins moment when I tried to overrun one of his technicals. So he had a technical truck with like 2 of those Soviet 23mm automatic cannon on the back of it. I overran that with a Israeli Zelda. It's basically an Israeli APC, almost like an M113.
Oh, I remember. It was one of the first Valor Victory games that you streamed.
Yeah, that went about as well as you might imagine. You might imagine. But it was fun to try. I lost the game like 90-10 or something. That game was a train wreck. Oh god. Okay, so I don't think you have any support missions left.
Not really.
And so it's up to your direct fire.
Do I really want to shoot anything?
Really quick, while we're still in your command phase, did you want to divide that full squad into 2 half squads?
Oh yeah, please.
That might actually help a little bit.
Might help.
Or at least make it more bloody for me to take that hex. Alright, cool. Now we go to
No, it's an escape tactics, You
Okay.
divide into smaller squads and try to get out of here into the jungle.
We run in different directions. At least some of us might make it.
Yep. So, let's take the first half squad from this hex and move it into November 5 into the house. Into the house next to it.
November 5. Oh, November 5, my bad.
And the second half squad will pull back to hexes into Kilo 4. And
people in the chat, I'm not taking opportunity fire because again we're in darkness. By the time he moves into hex Lima 5, he has not fired, and I am not adjacent to him, so I can't actually shoot at him. Normally, if you tried this, you would be eating opportunity fire on the way out. But it's not happening here because you can pull off this kind of last minute retreat in darkness. In daylight, you have to drop smoke before you can do that.
And that's it for my movement. And I don't know, you're going to shoot this officer of yours at November 6th?
Okay, so if he's done with movement, I didn't really have any opportunity fire, so I'm going to go ahead and take direct fire now. I have line of sight on basically nothing, except for here, because this guy's already adjacent. Well, technically, this guy is fired, so I think everybody can see him. For defensive fire, not for opportunity fire. So I'm foregoing opportunity fire. We're going now into Viet Minh direct fire. I'm sorry, defensive fire. 1 point, -1 +2 for buildings, so it's literally red column, add 1 to the result. You never know, I might shoot through the window and brain somebody out in that little
Well,
cottage there.
that's true.
Webcam time. Especially the way I've been going. If my numbers weren't bad enough, I've actually had pretty good dice rolls today. And I just rolled snake eyes. So he ran into that house, and Mr. Nagoya there just went BAM! Kicked the door down and shotgunned into the building. That is, again, I have to add 1 though. -1 for my officer bonus, +2 for your building. So that is a total of 3 was my real roll. That is 4 casualty points. There's only 3 casualty points there. He actually did just do that.
Yep, he did.
Oh my god, that was epic. You are awesome.
Yeah, it was like the old, gangster movies when this guy
Yep.
opens the door and shoots everyone inside with a Tommy gun.
He kicks in the door, Nagoyan's already in the other window saying knock knock, and just the PPSH just empties out all 60 rounds.
Say hello to my little friend.
Okay, so here, defensive fire, this unit here has fired at me in the past, so we do see him. I have to add 2 for my buildings, +1, or 2 for your buildings, +1 for darkness, because we're shooting at muzzle flashes. So I have 1, 2, 3, 8, 13 points, add 3 to the result, because that's a -0 officer, right? Yeah. What did I say, 13? Yep, 13, add 3 to the result. So gray column, or gray row, add 3.
Yeah.
That is a modified 11, no effect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -1, +2, +1 for darkness, so it's a net 2 for building. 7, that's white row, net add 2. 8 +2 is 10. This is almost like the Billy the Kid movie where the guys like hold up inside a building and there's just like hundreds of bullets heading through all the windows, but no one's actually getting hit, strangely.
You're shooting with stormtroopers.
Yeah, well, no, that's the building, like all the glass is falling out of the window, the lights are shattering off the ceiling. Technically in range, technically I can't see that. 15, 17 +3, still on the gray row, add 3. Oops, try to get him in the box. 7 +3 is 10, still no effect. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stop embarrassing myself with this direct fire because we're not hitting shit. Go ahead and go with your advance and assault phase.
I really want to do anything. We'll try to, just for fun, no, we will not. So I'm not moving anything actually, so no cuts. Oh, maybe the medic will move into November 5.
Did this guy ever shoot at anybody this turn?
Nope.
Oh, because he's going to move? Or...
No, the medic is going to move into November 5.
Okay.
And that's all. That's it. No more moves.
Well, we're in the advance and assault phase now.
Yeah, I know. So
okay.
no more, assaults, advances, and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm not going to assault that officer.
Oh, why not, man? Look what he just did. He deserved payback for that.
But then...
Right. Yeah, I'm kidding. Okay, super, just to keep the turn sequence straight, roll a bleed out for this guy down here in the rubble.
It's a 4.
He's okay.
Still.
All right, cool. That will complete the turn then, because you have no one to rally. Moving swiftly forward into turn 3. These turns are going to get pretty quick now.
Yeah, when you look at the remnants of the Second E Company and the survivors, that's saying something.
Yeah, that's how you started with remnants and survivors. What do you have now? You have remnants and survivors of the remnants and survivors. Oh, Dien
So
Bien
this
Phu.
is all like 10 guys on the table when it comes to the French side?
Total French force is 12, 14 men.
Okay.
Yeah, 4, because a half squad's 4, 4 and 4 is 12, and 2-man medic team. So 12 plus 2.
Nice.
Alrighty, I have no artillery left. This guy can see into that building hex because he has fired at us in the past. 15 minus 2, plus 2 for building, minus 1 for darkness. So it's 15 net, add 1 to the roll. Come on, recordless rifles. Oh, before we do that, all my rallies, I'll have it automatically at the beginning of my command phase. Come on, machine. Close enough. Alright, so 15 net, add 1. Add 1. That is 5 on the 15. 4 casualty points.
So they're toast.
Yeah, the Viet Minh dice, on top of everything else, the Viet Minh dice here have just been merciless.
No. This recordless rifles, they're doing their job this game.
Alright, cool. I'm gonna go, well, never mind direct fire, because the only guy I had a line of sight on just died. So there's no Viet Minh direct fire. We're gonna go straight to Viet Minh movement. We're gonna move down here, clean out that casualty. Also just to make my game board look nice. Holy crap. Get out of here, I'm taking over your platoon. Okay, I'll go sit here in the bunkers, or in the craters. So 1, 2, 3, 4 jump out of the trench. I'm sure I'll eat shit for that one, but what the hell. Alright, out of the craters, 1, 2, 3. Three, 4. Jump out of the trench. 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's jumping in and out of trenches. Still in the trench. That's good enough for now. I actually have 1 sapper left. Holy crap. Alright, that will be it for my movement. When this stack jumped from this hex to this hex, I do not get benefit of trenches for opportunity fire, because there is no brown trench line leading between those 2 hexes. It sucks, but I'm trying to get 2 full stacks to assault that guy in Kilo 4. I'm going to pay for it, I'm sure, but that's fine. Or you can shoot at this guy who does still have the benefit of trenches. It's up to you.
Now we will, shoot the guys that were jumping between trenches.
Cool. So 3 points, -2.
Well, it's a 9.
9
Becomes
becomes
a
a
7.
7. Still no effect.
Their hands are shaking, so
There's literally only like 3 guys. Okay, and then you have 2 guys in. Or you have a fire team in Hex Kilo 3.
But they cannot see you, so you did not shoot yet, so I cannot
This is true, right?
hit you.
I keep forgetting that rule. Okay.
And that's all.
All right. Advance and assault phase. We're gonna call out once for that medic to surrender. Does he surrender?
Yep.
Cool. We go in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 10. We're assaulting out of this hex here. 10 equals 13 against 2. Again, he counts as 2 versus an assault. 13 versus 2 is past 4 to 1. The table stops at 4 to 1. I also have a -1 officer in there. So it's 4 to 1 at -1. I have to roll an 11 or less. Watch it fail. Just watch it. Actually, I'm actually half hoping it does. 5 plus 1 is a 6. That's a success. Alright, I have to pay 3 casualty points, 1 infantry point, plus 2 for the building. So, knock him down and pin down another half squad. Alright. Advance and assault phase continues. Okay, these guys that somehow didn't get blown up are going to go ahead and launch their assault into Kilo 4. I have 15, 18 total points versus 3. Again, way past 4 to 1. No bonus for commanders though, because I have a -0 commander in there, so I have to roll a 10 or less. A 9, he almost failed it. But that unit's toast, and I have to pay 3 casualty points. So again, another half squad killed, followed by a pinned down half squad. Come on, machine. It's right here. There were 3 full squads. Yeah, 3 full squads. One of them's destroyed, half destroyed, and the remnants are pinned.
That's
okay. And finishing up advance and assault phase. Alright, cool. Let's take the... let me just try and rally those guys. Group number 1, succeed. Group number 2, fails. And that wraps up Viet Minh turn 3. It's down to the bitter end. Let me rename the... hold on, Excel's giving me a bit of a rough ride here. Alright, cool. French turn number 3.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
So, actually the only thing I can do, because we will fight till the end, so we will try to shoot these guys that just assaulted the other half squad that is no longer with us. So let's try to shoot these guys from Kilo 3 into Kilo 4.
Super apologize. This guy is pinned. Oh, but then he made his rally check. Sorry. Okay, cool.
Yep.
So it's 3. Cool. Add 2 for trenches.
It's a 4.
4 becomes a casualty point. 4 becomes a 6, which is 1 casualty point on the 3 row. Alright, cool. And then, yeah, I think that's it, unless you're going to assault, which I doubt.
If I can survive, because now we can do some defensive fire.
Um, yeah, so then on turn 4, yeah, we're going to go ahead and do our assault. So I almost feel silly doing this, but just to kind of close out the game 100%. And to also make the point that this did take until turn 4 out of 6 turns, so it did take most of the game. It probably didn't take as long as I thought it was going to take, but then again, I did lose easily half my force. Especially from 70, what was that, 79th Battalion? That first battalion in the south. Oh. So 79th Battalion was almost completely wiped out. And 18th Battalion did take some losses. So if we actually sat down and actually tried to figure out the math, I'm sure we would come up with about a 50% loss rate for the Viet Minh, which is still not enough. This game still isn't well balanced, but oh, sorry, direct fire phase. I have a total of 12 points plus 13 minus add 2 for your bunker or for your rubble. I'm on the white row. I'm on the gray row. I have to add 2 to that number. And again, my dice rolls are just kicking ass today. I
Nice.
I bitch a lot when I get bad rolls. I'm gonna definitely sing when I get good rolls. I completely acknowledge that my dice have been on fire today. So adjusted for trenches and rubble, that comes out to be a 6, which is still 3 casualty points on the 18 to 11 row, and there are exactly 3 casualty points in there, and I think that's going to be game.
Yep, a good game.
Advancing this, well, I appreciate you saying that. I think you're being a hell
No,
of a good
it's
sport.
true.
But
It's really true because you really captured with the design the feel of the last days of the Dien Bien Phu, the last assault. You know, it was no way I could stop you doing this game, so it was a loss from the beginning. But the question was how long can we last? How long can I
that's what I was
last
hoping
actually?
for. I was hoping that I would need until turn 5 or even better, turn 6. If I had taken the last bunker, the last objective hex on turn 6, like right now we're beginning turn 4. Actually, we're finishing turn 4. If I had been finishing on turn 6 right now, I'd have been overjoyed. Because that's a perfect game. To make it like really come down to the wire. But that's no worries. The game ended a little earlier. I don't know how much of that is the scenario's fault. Number one, I had really kick-ass dice. I rolled a lot of good die rolls in there, and it was like one after another after another. And another one, honestly, dude, by illuminating your own position here, back here in Golf 8, that allowed me to absolutely broadside that bunker and take out one of your strongest positions.
Yeah, that was a mistake,
I'm
but
not entirely sure
I
I would
was
have done
hoping
that.
for doing something else. Yes,
Yeah.
so yeah, I acknowledge it was stupid.
Um, yeah, darkness rules are tricky. I know. I mean, it wasn't really my fault, but holy crap, man! That Falklands game that we played at night, I had some flares, and Dylan had some flares. Then somewhere along the road, my mortar dropped a 12 boxcars on a fire mission. So that's technically an anti-personnel firepower check. So it does summon a British para sniper. A British para sniper popped out of the rocks behind me, shot and killed everybody on my mortar crew, wiped out my mortars. And now he controls the light on the battlefield because I can't drop any more flares. The only thing I can shoot at is what he decides to show me. So needless to say, that game went downhill in a big hurry. Like almost as bad as this one. But hey, thanks very much for being a good sport. This concludes our assault on Claudine 5. The result was not unexpected. I just wish it had taken a little longer. I think it would have if my dice were not so ridiculously good. My dice really were good today, and maybe without that flare over a French position. I think with those two factors taken out, this lasts until at least turn 5, and that's okay. That's actually a pretty good game. The point is not whether or not the French are going to survive. This is a historical recreation of the last assaults of Dien Bien Phu. No, the French are not going to survive. It's whether or not the player can squeak out a fair win from an unfair battle and just have it take too long. So if we were going to redesign the scenario, we would maybe, I don't know, we'd figure something out. Because, Viet Minh losses were pretty terrible. We did get that part right. I lost at least a battalion taking out an understrength company. That's at least a 4-to-1 kill ratio. I just wish the game had taken a little longer. But I think those two wildcard elements, again, were that flair and especially my dice rolling, which was legitimately and admittedly uncharacteristically good for me. Usually I get pretty crappy rolls, especially on camera, but today, I'm not going to lie, man, Lady Luck was giving me a lap dance the whole friggin' game. It was great. I loved it. I don't know what I did to get on her good side, but whatever it is, I got to remember it and do it again.
No, I really appreciated the game. So once again, I must say, a good game. And we wrapped up Dien Bien Phu. So that's also
We've
an achievement.
covered. We haven't obviously done every engagement because that would take us till Christmas. But we've done one. Well, actually, one up here, up in the jungle. 1, 2 at Beatrice, 3 at Eliane, and then 4 here at Claudine. We've covered a lot of it. We've covered both the French I keep calling them French, the Foreign Legion ground troops, the Foreign Legion paras. We've covered the Moroccans of 4th Rifle. So we've covered, most of the different elements of forces that were engaged here. The one thing we didn't really get any of the Montagnard local tribesmen that were helping out. I don't think I even have counters made for them. I've always meant to. Because I want to use Montagnard tribesmen in a special forces game one of these days.
Yeah, that could be cool. We didn't do that, and we didn't do the part with the Viet Minh. Oh God, I'm missing a word now. With the Viet Minh trenches dug around the French positions. So or something like that.
The issue when you use trenches as an offensive tactic rather than a defensive tactic. I honestly don't know if that would have worked on the Valor and Victory scale.
It could be hard.
Or we'd have to get some really, really big tables. If we were doing some of these battles in Panzerleader or something similar, some like a larger scale platoon level game, where the hexes are like 200 meters, 300 meters. In other words, okay, back here we have a small section of the map from Dien Bien Phu, The Last Gamble. And these are literally, I think, 100 meter hexes. So here we have Claudine 5, and this was kind of what I used here. So our map a second ago covers this. Oh, of course it's not on top. Send it back. Hold on. 1 second, guys. Okay, yeah, so the map that we just played on is roughly like that. Because these are roughly 100 meter hexes. So 150 meter hexes, maybe I think it's 150 meter hexes, they say in the, you have the game now, so you would know.
Yeah, I've got to check the instructions.
But I think it's 150 is what it said on Board Game Geek. But if you were going to play this, which makes it basically Panzerleader scale, this is a Panzerleader map for Dien Bien Phu. Obviously there wouldn't be very many Panzers on it. You have some Chaffies, but the point is that on the next click up on a scale, echelon level, here is where you would see Vietnamese trench-seeking tactics. But at 15 meters a hex in Valor and Victory, I'm not sure how. Correct me if I'm wrong. How close did some of those Viet Minh trenches actually get to French positions?
Well, there were cases that they were like 20 meters away from the French positions, but they were not usually. Usually, you had 50 meters away from the French positions.
Well, each hex again is 15 meters, so 50 meters would be 3 hexes away, and the game would support it. So what the game would do, if you ever wanted to, give it a try, is there are trench counters that are. So the way we do it here in Dien Bien Phu is the trenches are normally part of the map. The custom map for the scenario, the trenches are preset as the position was defensively. The way Valor and Victory normally works is you get a certain number of trenches in your army, in your order of battle. and you get to set them up where you want. So the Viet Minh player would get like, oh, you get 3 artillery missions, you get, these troops, you get these mortars, you get these recoilless rifles, you get these infantry squads and officers. Oh, and by the way, you get 6 trench counters. They have to be connected, have to draw a line to the west end of the board, or something like that, you would say. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, where am I going to draw my trenches at here? I get 6 of them. Okay, here's 1. And then you literally just set them up like regular pieces. Obviously, they don't move like a regular unit does, but they're just additional assets in your army list. And you'd be like, how close do I want to get? I want another trench up here, so I want 2 trenches that are 3 hexes long instead of 1 that is 6 hexes long, or something like that. Or you could say, the hell with it, I want to go 1, 2, but then you're immediately taking fire. So, I mean, the game would mechanically support what you're talking about. I just didn't realize that the Viet Minh trenches historically got that close to French positions. I'll admit, whenever I think about Dien Bien Phu, I am jaded and slanted and biased, colored, whatever the word is, a little bit by Khe Sanh. And Khe Sanh, some of those trenches got within like 500 meters or something. They didn't get that close. The Marines at Khe Sanh did a little bit of a better job of clearing out the terrain, and they had much better air support. So they, the Viet Minh getting close didn't really happen. We finally would have arc light strikes from B-52s landing at the insanely close distance. I mean, absurdly close. I had to rewrite the book on how you would safely bomb with B-52s at 1,200 meters. Or at 1,200, yeah, so 1,200 meters divided by 15, that's 80 hexes away in Valor and Victory. So it wouldn't even happen on a Valor and Victory table. But how many heavy barrages is a B-52 arc light strike worth? I mean, that's the reason why it wouldn't fit on that map. So when I think of Viet Minh trenches or Viet Cong or NVA trenches, I tend to think in Khe Sanh terms rather than rather than Dien Bien Phu terms.
Cool. Interesting. However, this was a nice journey when it comes to fighting this Dien Bien Phu and the first Indochina War, the last shots of it at least.
More or less, yeah. Again, the history is pretty simple from this point forward. The French the last positions are overrun. Most of the French troops are either killed or wounded. A good bunch of them are captured, but even those ones that survived the assault and were captured and were marched off into Viet Minh captivity, I don't remember what the actual rate was. It was like 60%, 50% ever made it out of there, something like that. Less than that.
Something like that. I believe that there was
a little more than half.
Yeah,
which is horrible. You're not supposed to have a 40% death rate walking into enemy POW camp, but.
Oh yeah, that's true. But from what I believe and remember, there were like most of them were released 3 or 4 months later from the captivity. At least those guys that survived.
Right. Yeah, because you hear, talk about the French Foreign Legion. A lot of these guys that walked out of Dien Bien Phu survived Viet Minh captivity and were released later in 1954. By 1960, they're in Algeria. By 1956, they're in Algeria. So how crazy you got to be to survive a battle like this, survive death camps and all this other stuff, somehow by God's grace make it home, and the first thing you do is sign up for the next one. And now you're in the Algerian Civil War of, I think it's 1956 to 1962.
Something like that.
And that one's almost as bad.
Yeah, well, the French didn't have, I don't know how to call it, luck when it comes to this counterinsurgency wars that they waged in their former colonies.
Well, yeah, it's always fun to kind of poke fun at the French, but when it comes to First Indochina War, the American historian needs to keep his mouth shut a little bit, because we took a crack at this 10 years later, and we didn't really end up with that much of a better result. And
that's true.
We threw a hell of a lot more money at it, too. And still lost.
that's true. And at the end of the first Indochina War, I believe that the 80% of the war effort was sponsored by the American government. So because the French didn't want to fight that war anymore,
That's the
it
American
drank.
taxpayer paying
Yeah,
NATO's bills for the last 80 years. You're welcome. But I won't jump
cheaper.
up
Just
on that soapbox too much. Was France even in NATO at this point? I know French left NATO in the late 50s, early 60s, and then they came back in like 2007. They officially rejoined.
I don't
So
remember if they were still in NATO.
they definitely left. I'm pretty sure it was near the end of the 50s, and it was like a 2-year process. I think by 1960 they were fully out. I could be
Yeah.
wrong about that. But they left NATO relatively quickly after NATO was formed. Pretty much, I think it was as soon as France developed the bomb. When France developed the bomb, and then NATO said, "Okay, good. Don't forget, Charter Articles 4 and 5 of the NATO Charter says that we get some control over that." France was like, "Oh hell no, never mind. We're out. Keep your club. Yeah, we developed the bomb. We'll use it when we want to. Thank you very much."
Uh, I already remember the Robin Williams sketch when he was like, no, because we're the French.
Oh yeah, we will test our atomic bombs in the desert. No, we will do it in paradise. Why? Because we are French.
Yep.
Look at me, I'm giving a cigarette to a baby. Life is shit, get used to it. I am French.
Fuck you, America.
Oh man, good old
Oh
Robin
yeah,
Williams. Gone too soon.
that's
Alright
true.
guys, on that cheerful note, on that uplifting final note there, we're going to go ahead and close out the stream. Thanks once again, Piotr, for helping me. Again, I'm not very strong historically when it comes to the first Indochina War. So all of your research was definitely very helpful. I mean, I could have taken a stab at some of these battles, but to make them as accurate as we did, and again, they weren't perfect, but to make them as accurate as we did, your research was definitely very helpful on that. And yeah, we
Oh,
had some great Valor and Victory games. So
oh, thank you. It was a
absolutely.
pleasure.
Okay, guys, so that's going to close us out for today. Stay tuned for more content coming out during the week. Let's see, this week I think we have part 2 of our Case Yellow replay. That's Belgian versus French, or Belgian and French versus German. Part 2 of that recap video is coming out, I think, tomorrow. Thursday, I think Gaz is going to be painting some more miniatures for us. I know Marty and Gianna are gearing up. They've actually already started, or they're starting this week, on building the actual terrain for the Benghazi compound for our 13 days to 13 hours project. And I'll hopefully be running something again on Sunday as usual. Probably some more Panzer Leader 1940 to continue those 80th anniversaries. But for now, we're going to go ahead and close out the stream. Thanks very much, and I will talk to everybody later on this week. Take care, everybody. So long.
Cool. Bye bye.